Unfortunately, yes, that is true. That is me.
Awesome, man. So let's go. Let's see what you got.
Awesome. All right, y'all. So Johnny, first off, appreciate the introduction. First off, want to make sure that you guys all do this. My name is Robby T. I go by Robby T because my last name is Trefethrin, which sounds like a pharmaceutical drug, and it comes with all the problems and none of the money. Anybody here watch the show The Bear by chance on Hulu? Anybody? Y'all got to check it out. Anyone ever watch Shameless? Shameless or The Bear? Anyone ever watch either of those shows?
We got one person over here.
All right. Well, I got one fan in here. Thank you. Anyways, long story short, there's a lot of inner city trauma, and that is my family growing up. If you Google my last name, you'll find interesting stories about my cousins or family members. Long story short, y'all, I kind of want to give you guys some background on me. I come from good old Fargo, North Dakota, and no, it's not frozen right now. We actually get hot as heck. We do have internet and all that fun stuff. But long story short, I started in this game as an ISA. Does anybody know what an ISA is in real estate?
Yeah.
All right, cool, good. We're getting somewhere. I was an ISA. That's how I started in this game about a decade ago. And as Johnny had kind of said, I made 100,000 phone calls, spoke to 10,000 people, set about 1,000 appointments, and that led to about 500 closings for our real estate team in Fargo, North Dakota. But I want to start here today. I want to start off by telling you about my story and where I worked before I worked in real estate. And it was in the one thing that I think is less popular than sales: political campaigns. I was the guy working what's known as field. Field is the guy, I was the person knocking on your door, calling you saying, hey, who do you vote for? Who are you planning on voting for? And what's really unique is when I got into that game, when I got into the political game, I went and studied like political science, all that fun stuff. What was interesting? Oh, Minot, North Dakota. Good to see you guys. Why not Minot? That's funny. Saw that in the chat there. Anyways, when I was working political campaigns, I was given a script book. Sound familiar, right? As just like when we get into real estate, I was given a script book and I was told, hey, go out to these people's doorsteps, try to identify who they plan on voting for, and tell them these 3 reasons why they should vote for my candidate. And y'all, I just want you to guess. How do you think I was treated on those doorsteps?
Oh, well.
I was either loved or hated. You think of any cuss word, threats, any offensive term you can think of, I was called it when knocking those doors. And about 2 weeks in, I was like, man, this really just doesn't work. And y'all, I'm not the smartest person, but I know that when something doesn't work, I got to pivot and try something else. So here's what I did. I took their strategy of me trying to sell them on our candidates and I threw it out the window. And this is the first thing I want you to write down is I simply implemented something I heard Tony Robbins say, which is if you want to influence someone, you need to find out what's already influencing them. After about 2 weeks of working political campaigns, knocking those doors, making those phone calls, I threw the playbook out the window. And what I started doing is I went up to people's doorsteps and I said, Susan, what matters to you this election? Luann, what are the things that you care about this election? I started people asking these questions and something interesting happened. Instead of getting the door slammed in my face or getting guns pointed at me or getting called really, really offensive names, guess what happened? People wouldn't shut the hell up. They would just talk and talk and talk. And what's really interesting is I took that same approach. I took that same mindset, and it's what I want to make sure I teach to you all today. Obviously, we're going to make sure that you understand the real estate dialect behind it. But I took that same approach that our jobs, when we're talking to our clients, our friends, our families, or leads. By the way, I hate the term leads because what is a lead? It's a person.
Yeah.
It's a human with needs, wants, desires, emotions, fears, right? Thoughts. And what I realized was in these conversations, when I'm talking to somebody who is a voter, or whether I'm talking to somebody looking to buy a home, a lead, friend, or family member, I realized that my North Star had to change. And here's what it changed to. I really realized that people didn't want to be sold. Anyone here want to be sold?
No.
Think about this, y'all, for a second. Okay, I'm going to digress. By the way, anyone in here have ADHD? Anyone? Come on, raise those hands. We're out there, 20% of us. All right, so I'm a special type of ADHD. I'm ADHD AF. Okay, it's like the special ones. Okay, so just you got to bounce around with me sometimes. Okay. Anyway, so when I was having these conversations with folks, when I would have these conversations, what I realized was people get afraid, and that people didn't want to be sold. So imagine you go to a car dealership, right? When you see that car salesperson walking up to you and they ask, hey, what brought you out today? Is that what they always ask? Always, right? What's the thing that we all say? Just looking, right? Is that truthful?
Kind of.
Rarely. Rarely. You could be walking in and you're like, I'm buying that white car. I'm going to do it. And that salesperson walks up to you and you're like, just looking. Imagine a furniture store, same thing. You're like, I'm buying that bedroom set. They walk up to you. Oh, we're just checking things out. We're just taking a look. Why do we do that, y'all? Why? You do it. I do it. Everybody does it. Why? Nobody answers this question. Why do people do this? It's very simple.
What else we got?
Very simple. Write this down. They're afraid of you selling them something that they don't want. They're nervous. They're afraid of buyer's remorse. They're afraid that you're going to push them to do something that they don't want. And y'all, what happens when they're afraid?
Shut down.
Resistance rises, yeah? Fear rises. Therefore, resistance rises. Now, here's what's really, really funny about this. That's normal. If you guys do it when you walk into a car dealership, it is normal for leads to do it in our conversations. But then something really, really stupid happened, and it caused us to forget that this is normal. And that really, really stupid thing was the market reaction post-COVID, right? It's something that I call basically May 2020 through May 2022. I want you to write down this term. Some people called it a momentum market. I called it a simple term, a fake market. Here's why I called it fake. Two big things. One, first off, we need to recognize that COVID massively changed people's mindset about buying or owning a home. Ryan Serhant says it best. COVID in and of itself was a billboard to own or upgrade your own home. Can we all agree on that? Because we were afraid of shutdowns, lockdowns. I know some of y'all are down in California where you were locked down for longer. And what happened was people were like, oh my goodness, if this ever happens again, because it's in our recent memory. And by the way, are you ever going to forget what your life was like during that shutdown? You'll never forget it. In your minds, there's three things. If I said do you remember these three key events? And these three things are COVID shutdowns and all of that, 9/11, and the crash of 2007, 2008. Every single time. Those are the three things. So it sticks, and it sticks in your mind because it was so novel and so different. We had never gone through it before, and it was such a shift. It was such a change from what we went through. But what we need to realize is it changed the psychology of how people thought about a home. People were, right after COVID, they were exponentially more willing to spend money to upgrade and own their own home. Why? Because it was your classroom. It was your vacation destination. It was your office, your movie theater. It was everything. So that's the first piece of why the market became fake. The second thing, though, which is probably the bigger reason why I call it the fake market, was these interesting things called federal stimulus. You see what happened, of course, because the Fed and government officials were deathly afraid of the economy crashing because we essentially shut down the world economy, was they slashed rates to what? Essentially zero. They also pumped, my favorite example or favorite wording of this was they did a financial bazooka. You get money. They're pulling Oprah, weren't they? You get money. You get money. Everybody gets money. You get money. Federal stimulus, PPP money. There was money everywhere. And y'all, what happens when people get money in their hands and they have extra money in their hands? What do they do with it? Spend it. Including on really stupid things like NFTs, cryptocurrencies that no one's ever heard of that spike up overnight and then die off. We were in a bubble, y'all. We were in this fake little bubble. Then starting April, May of 2022, what happened?
Interest rates.
Interest rates were raised. And some people were like, darn it, Fed, why would you do that? Well, it's pretty simple why. We were seeing inflation near double digits. And y'all, let's just be real. We all like a little bit of inflation. But when inflation hits double digits, when you go to the grocery store and a year later you're buying 10% less or more, man, that really sucks. So what the Fed did was they started pulling money out of the system, very, very simply. And it's got us back down and grounded to what I would call a normal market. Here's why this matters, though. In that fake market, here's what happened. Objections and resistance disappeared. For essentially 2 years, how many objections did you have to deal with? People are like, their objection was like, do I spend 10% over or 20%? Y'all, that ain't an objection. There was no, I'm just looking for fun. It was, I want to buy a house yesterday. Objections disappeared. And the analogy that I've been using is two of them. Number one is we were playing basketball on that little Tykes hoop. Anybody got like some 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds? You know the hype? Little hoop I'm talking about? We were playing basketball on that thing and we thought we were MJ. Nope. The other analogy I'm using or use is we all thought we were really great at fishing. Okay, I grew up in the land of 10,000 lakes. I was born in Minnesota. And so I use fishing analogies. Hopefully y'all can relate. Anyways, we thought we were good at fishing. When in reality, we weren't even fishing. The fish were jumping out of the water into our boats. What happened, y'all, is we completely lost the skills and the mindset that objections, resistance is the normal. It's actually healthier. What's really funny is when the market was getting really, really crazy, 2020 through 2022, and I got afraid. Because I knew the music was going to stop at some point. And I knew that a lot of my friends were going to get hurt. Because a lot of people's disciplines and their habits and their self-investment, their lead generation, all of it went out the window. Now, here's what's probably true is that if you're here today, you're one of the very few that actually made it. Right? There's two types of people in real estate right now. This is statistical fact. I want you to write this down. The top 60% of homes in the United States were sold by 19,000 real estate agents. In other words, the top 1.2% of all homes sold in the United States are sold by 1.2% of people. 60% of homes sold by 1.2% of people. Well, let's inverse that number. That means 99% of agents sell 40% of homes. Technically 98.8 if you want to be specific. If you run the numbers, y'all, like I do, I'm a math nerd. That means that the top 1% averages 252 homes sold per year. Sound about right? Those are the teams, the highly leveraged individuals selling a ton of homes. And then the bottom 99%, they sell 2 homes per year. What's really interesting is we're not seeing massive amounts of people quitting real estate, but what we are seeing is that this game is becoming more and more and more consolidated. What that simply means is that less people are selling more. And here's what I get to do. I get to spend my time with those people that are selling 250 homes, the people that we get to coach and train traditionally our team selling 3, 4, 5,000, 2,000 homes per year. And y'all, there's some simple things that they're doing that you all need to be doing and you need to take a page out of the book. Number 1, they're practicing, y'all. They're investing in themselves 45 minutes per day, 3+ days per week. Some people call it role play. Some people call it growth time. It doesn't really matter. They're practicing. They're having conversations. They're attending things like this to expose their mind to new ideas. They're reading books. They're doing book studies. I don't care what it is, but they're growing and getting better. Here's the funny thing. Where are my Californian friends at? Where are y'all at? Here we go. All right, where are my Lakers fans at? Boo. Okay. All right. I like to boo the Lakers as well because the fact that they're called the Lakers, isn't it the dumbest thing ever? How many lakes are in LA? 0. We'll call it 0, right? Why are they called the Lakers? Does anybody know? Minnesota. Because they bought the team from Minneapolis. Are there lakes in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Over, I think, 11,000 of them, but that's not as marketable as 10,000. My point, they keep like finding new ones, by the way, just like randomly creates one. But anyways, here's why I want to bring up the Lakers. Whether you like it or not, one of the best players of all time is Kobe Bryant. We all agree on that? Yeah. Kobe Bryant. And here's what's funny. Whether it's Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, it does not matter. What's so interesting about the greats is they don't stop practicing the basics. Yet what I see happen is we have this addiction in real estate where we think we made it and we quit role playing, we quit practicing. And y'all, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not practicing those skills, they disappear. And y'all, what do you think happened between May 2020 and May 2022? Our heads were all the size of those fat heads. You know, those things that kids can put on their wall. Our heads got that big. We thought we were good. And y'all, we sucked. The quality of service that I saw happen in this industry plummeted. The skills of the real estate individuals plummeted. We were running really fast, don't get me wrong. We were working really, really hard, but we weren't skilled. And the people that I've seen shoot out of this shift like a cannon, it's the people that either woke up to this or never stopped, and they were practicing. Second thing they're doing, lead generating. 45 minutes per day, they're lead generating. And here's what's really funny. Who they're lead generating to does not matter. I see people that make their money with pay-per-click leads. I see people who kill it with Zillow leads. I see people that don't buy any company leads and they only do radio or they only do sphere of influence. I don't care, but you have to find your niche. You have to find what you're good at, what's authentic to you. By the way, there's one book you should all go read. It's called The Unsold Mindset. Just came out not too long ago. I hate sales books, just to preface this. Hate them. Because they're usually all trash. Because there's almost never any psychology referenced. And sales is basically just psychology. What I love about The Unsold Mindset, it is rooted in science. Again, one more time, The Unsold Mindset. But what you need to do is you need to find your authentic voice, find what you authentically like doing. For me, y'all, I was that loser, joking aside, not that ISAs are losers. I was that nerd. I was that person who would call people who had no idea who I was. None. I'd call expireds, canceled, pay-per-click leads, Zillow leads. And my whole goal was to get people who hated me. Right? Do you want to talk to a random salesperson? We've already agreed to this. No. But what you need to do is you need to find your niche. You need to be making sure that you're doing something routinely and doing it over and over and over again. Those are the two simple things that the greats are doing to remain great. They are growing and generating in this game. That's it. It's not any more complicated. And when I go look at people that are struggling right now, almost always the first thing that I go and do is I go look at their calendar. And it's not enough just to have it in your calendar. I go look at their life and say, are you actually living it?
Come on.
So many of us have it blocked off in our calendar and you don't do it. Congruence and discipline is the separation between those that actually execute. I'm going to end on one more thing real quick before I switch to really more specific things about lead conversion. And it's simply this, is that complexity is the enemy of execution. And there's so many people that are overthinking these things. They don't know what to do. Pick up the phone and call a lead, ask questions, listen, do something. Almost always, you don't need to complicate your life anymore. You just need to simplify it. You probably don't need to go and do more. You need to go and do less and do those less things more often. I see this so often where many teams are distracted and you know how the game is in real estate. There's silver bullets and there's a billion different things you can spend your money on. The joke, just so you all know, in real estate is that if you want to make some decent money in real estate, sell homes. If you want to become really wealthy, sell something to real estate agents. Tell me I'm wrong. All right. Anyway, so to tie this back now, again, ADHDAF, I'm sorry. What it really comes down to is I want to talk about tying this back to when people are resistant. Resistance is normal. What you need to really understand is that people saying, I'm just curious, I'm just looking for fun, I'm afraid of the interest rates, I'm afraid of the market right now, that is what I would call a fear-based objection. Everybody should write that term down, fear-based objections. They're saying it because they're afraid of something. And that causes resistance to rise. Now, what's really interesting is that I see people handling fear-based objections and objections in 4 different types of ways. Number one, the first type of way I see people in this industry handling fear-based objections is you believe them. Someone says, I'm going to wait till the market crashes. I'm going to wait till we have a new president. I'm going to wait till interest rates come down. And you're like, all right, sounds great. I'll follow up then. You know what I call that? Stupid. It's a terrible strategy. Because when you follow up when there's a new president, you know what they tell you? Well, we bought a house 6 months ago. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Second strategy, and again, these first 3 are all going to be strategies that you should stop doing. Strategy number 2 is you use 3 of my favorite words. Tell me more. But there's a problem with using tell me more when people are already afraid. Fear begets more fear. You see, when you ask somebody who says they want to wait for interest rates to go down or for the market to crash or for a new president, when you say, well, tell me about that, what happens is their mind starts literally thinking. Put yourself in their shoes. You start looking for, mentally connecting the dots of what is the confirming information. And y'all, If you haven't heard of it yet, there's something called confirmation bias, which basically means logic doesn't matter when we're feeling things. What happens is when we're feeling something, we just want confirming information, and we don't care about disconfirming information. So what happens is when you ask them, well, tell me why you think the market's going to crash, they think of the news media headlines that they've been seeing. By the way, anyone ever notice that the news media has no damn clue what's happening in real estate? Holy God. Goodness sakes. What happens, y'all, is we try asking for more information, and there's a great place to use Tell Me More. Fear-based objections is not it. Third strategy that I see you all doing, and there's going to be a lot of you, this is going to hit you right between the eyes. Third strategy is you try debating them. Uh-oh. This is my favorite example of this is somebody says, well, I don't want to buy right now because interest rates are just too high. And you're like, well, actually, did you know that interest rates are not that bad compared to the 1980s when they were 15, 16, 17%? There's a lot of you right now, I'm speaking right at you. I'm pointing my finger at you. The market sucks. Doesn't. You try telling them these things. There's a big problem with this. What you're trying to do is you're trying to speak logic when somebody is feeling an emotion. Anyone here in a committed, married relationship? Raise your hand, please. Mm-hmm. All right. How's it work when one is emotional and you try speaking logic? How's that go down? Not good. Yeah, it's called the couch. Okay. I'm number one offender, right? Repeat offender. What happens, y'all, when people are emotional is logic doesn't matter. They literally can't hear it. And another example is if you have a 3 or 4-year-old who's melting down, what happens if you just tell that 3 to 4-year-old to stop it? You're being irrational. It gets worse. Well, y'all, what you need to realize is your clients, your leads, or even yourselves, you're just big grown-up versions of your 3-year-old self. Brains operate the same way when we're afraid. When we're afraid, we can't think logically. Everyone should write this down. This is the most eye-opening statement you're going to hear all day. People can't think logically when they're emotionally unregulated. Holy shit, blow your minds. You can't do it. That's why counselors, what do you think they do? They allow you to get your stuff out. And what happens? You calm yourself. This is where so many people are going wrong right now when people have objections. Well, they're afraid, whether they're afraid of you, maybe they're afraid of the market, maybe they're afraid of something else, you don't know. That fear is predominant in their mind. So this third strategy, debating them, the way I've put it is you could put on a TED Talk of how they're wrong, but they will not hear any of it. Strategy number 4. It's the only strategy that I've ever seen that actually works. Strategy number 4. Write it down. It's called the pivot. So when people throw you a fear-based objection, you have to get really, really good at this. Underneath the pivot, I want you to write down A and B. Part A is you acknowledge their answer. Acknowledge does not mean to affirm it, does not mean that you agree with it. It just means you acknowledge that somebody said something. Because if you fail to acknowledge what they say, they don't feel heard. When people don't feel heard, they don't feel like they can trust you. They feel like you're ignoring them, and then their fear actually goes up. And again, what do we have to do here? We have to help regulate people. I know, it's crazy. We got to regulate adults. Welcome to leadership, y'all. Anyways, we got to regulate people. And the way we do that is we have to make them feel safe. The way we do this is when they have a fear-based reaction, we have to acknowledge what they say. Something simply like, Brent, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Got it, Brent, I hear you. Hear you, Brent, that perspective, or I hear your perspective. You just had to acknowledge that they said something. Because if you fail to do that, Brent doesn't feel heard. Stephanie doesn't feel heard. Luann doesn't feel heard. You have to acknowledge they said something. Second part, underneath B, is you ask a motivation themed question. So it simply sounds like this. Brent tells me he's going to wait till interest rates go down to 5%. I'll just hypothetically say that's what he says. Got it, Brent. Appreciate you sharing that with me. Help me understand this, though. What was kind of the first place? Or what was causing you to look at real estate to begin with?
Robby, can you repeat that? You cut out. You cut out.
Oh, yeah. No worries. Sorry about that. So got it, Brent. I hear you. Help me understand what was causing you to look at real estate to begin with. Or what had you interested in real estate to begin with? Or why were you thinking about making a move to begin with? You literally just ask a motivation theme question. And then write down a C here. So A, acknowledge. B, motivation question. C, repeat. Here's what happens. What we need to understand, and what I've learned from studying psychology and looking at things, is our minds, it's like a flashlight, okay? So imagine you have a piece of paper. What you're doing is you're shining a flashlight through your questions in their brain on different pieces of information. And what happens is the flashlight, because they're afraid of you, they're afraid of the market, their flashlights on their fear of you in the market. When you acknowledge their answer, they don't want to push back, they don't want to fight back, they don't feel like they have to do that. And when you ask the question, what had you looking at real estate to begin with, that flashlight moves a little. And then when you ask again, it moves again. And y'all, what happens when you do this is the flashlight moves from the fear of you or the market to the fear or the pain or the emotion of their current situation. Things like we're running out of space. Things like babies are on the way. Things like we're going to have to move for my job. Things like we're going through a divorce. And what happens, y'all, the more they talk about those things, is emotions regarding that subject in that spotlight, that bubbles up. And y'all, if you're feeling pain or frustration about where you currently are or your desire to move, what does that cause you to want to do? Take action. You see, logic makes us think, but emotion makes us act. And this is all I realize is so many people in this game were having the wrong conversations when people were giving objections. We thought it was all about handling the objections. No, it's not. It's about distracting them from the silliness of the objection to begin with. It is no different than your 4-year-old melting down about not getting a toy in Target. Great parents, what they do is they distract their kid onto something else. That's how you regulate people. And then when you regulate them, what happens is they start talking about the fear of their pain point. And y'all, human beings are always either running from something or running towards something. Always. Or maybe a little bit of combination of both. And what I found is that when I started to ask some questions about that, that's where I started using Tell Me More. When they say, well, we're just running out of space. Okay, got it. Well, tell me about that, Brent. What do you mean by that? And I want you to write down this term. This literally comes from the unsold mindset. What's so key here is you have to be intentionally ignorant. You got to play stupid. What that means is when somebody says they want a bigger home, you ask extremely open-ended questions, almost like a 3-year-old. Just a little more tactfully. Well, tell me about that. When you're saying you want a bigger home, what do you mean by that? Then they're like, well, we're expecting twins in about 6 months. We're wanting to move. And they start telling you all this information. Or they'll say things, well, our family's growing. Anyone ever heard that before? Something like our family's growing? Yeah. Here's what's funny. What does our family is growing mean?
Running out of room.
You have no damn clue. You see what happens? This is the one of the biggest sins in lead conversion is we accidentally make assumptions. Don't get me wrong. Most of the time, 80% of the time, you're probably right. That when they say, well, our family is growing, it probably means a baby's on the way. But what we need to realize is if somebody says a baby's on the way in your mind, you then respond to them saying their family is growing with, oh, congratulations. Or when's baby due? Or something like that. And y'all, I did that once. I did it. I probably did it more times, but I remember this one time I did it and I'll never do it again. Somebody said to me, well, our family's growing. That's why we got to make a move. And I said, oh, congratulations. When's baby due? And the response was, my father-in-law just passed away and my mother-in-law is moving in. I was that asshole who congratulated somebody on their father-in-law passing away. Y'all, I got burnt hard. Please learn from my lesson so you don't have to do this. What I realized was if you're intentionally ignorant, opportunities like that, they're opportunities for you to learn. They don't get messed up because what happens is you see clarity. So when somebody says, well, my family's on the grow, the safe thing to do is, well, tell me about that. When you're saying your family's on the grow, what does that mean? And y'all, when I started doing that, there's some crazy things I started to hear. I want you to write these down. These were literally all the top of the head things I heard people say when they told me their family was on the grow. 1, baby's on the way. Duh. 2, twins are on the way. 3, triplets are on the way. 4, litter of puppies are on the way. 5, we're getting a horse. 6, mother-in-law moving in. 7, I'm adopting my drug-addicted kid's sister, my drug-addicted sister's kids. You see my point here. What happens is they start providing context. And instead of operating off an assumption, I'm now operating off of better information. But that's not the only thing that matters. What matters is that through this process, every time I hear somebody, we're building more trust. And the reality is that if you ever reflect on the best salespeople you've ever worked with, they're never the person that's pushy, salesy, annoying. It's always a person that hears you incredibly well, who does speak truth to you, but they hear you. This leads me to my final piece I want to talk about today, and I'll open up for questions. I believe, first off, sales is essentially influence and leadership. Okay, influence and leadership. And I believe that leadership, there's 4 different types of leaders that I've seen. I want you guys to write down these 4 different types of leaders. And again, you could take this and be like 4 different types of salesperson plugs right in because sales is influence and leadership. It's all the same crap. Number 1, the first type of leader is the ambivalent leader, the apathetic leader. This is the person that is not at all good of seeking out truth, and they will not speak truth back to you. Remember your first job, if you ever worked at like a fast food restaurant when you're 14 or 15, almost always your first managers were apathetic managers or leaders. Second type of leader is what I call the enabling leader. The enabling leader is somebody who's really, really good at hearing the needs, wants, and concerns of the people that they're leading. They're really good at this. But they're really bad at reflecting back uncomfortable truths. They avoid it. And what that leads to is accidentally enabling bad behavior. suboptimal results. The third is what I like to call the asshole. If you don't cuss like a sailor like me, I grew up in the back of a semi-truck, so I try to filter myself out. But when everybody else was hanging out with like cousins and friends, I was hanging out with what were known in my terms as a lumper. A lumper was the daily ready people, and man, their language choices were a lot different. So when I was 7, I was working. Anyways, I digress. The a-hole, if you don't want to use my naughty language, the a-hole. The a-hole is really, really good at speaking truth. They're not at all afraid of speaking truth, talking an uncomfortable truth, but they're really, really bad at hearing people. They didn't take the time to hear somebody first. They have no clue what actually matters to somebody. All three of those are suboptimal. The first is the worst. I would argue that an enabler is probably worse than an a-hole, but you can decide. I think ideal leaders are really great at seeking out truth first. Seeking out truth. Finding out what matters to the people they are leading. And then the second thing you have to do is you also have to speak very uncomfortable truths sometimes. You have to be good at both. And it's why accountability is one of the highest forms of love. And I think hearing people is one of the highest forms of love. Both are true. And I think they have to go in that order. You have to hear people, then you can hold them accountable. You can't hold them accountable until you hear them. I've tried this before, y'all. Again, couch. Doesn't work well. In short, the high D version of this, fear-based objections. Stop tell me moreing it. Stop trying to give a TED talk on why they're wrong. Pivot and get them talking about their needs, wants, and desires. Make them feel safe and give them that space. Avoid making assumptions by being intentionally ignorant. Ask clarifying questions, reflect those things back. Utilize Stephen Covey's habit of seeking first to understand, then to be understood. Rephrase and reflect back. Speak truth back to people after you've done this. Let them know that waiting is probably a really, really bad idea. Right? Can we all agree on that? Here's one of my favorite misconceptions about real estate. I'm going to wait till rates go down to 5.5%. And you know what I say after I listen to Brent and what he's hoping to do? I say, Brent, can I be a truth teller with you? And Brent says yes. And I say, Brent, how many people are thinking that exact same thought that you just did? I think it's a lot. And you know what I think is going to happen if rates go down? Statistically, is demand goes through the roof. And what happens if demand goes through the roof? What you pay for your house goes through the roof. Really, if you were to buy a house right now, you could always refinance it if you wanted to and get that lower rate. If I do that without hearing him first, none of it matters. If I hear him first and I ask for permission to be a truth teller, this really, really crazy thing happens is anything that comes out of my mouth is no longer just Robby saying it to Brent. It is our collaborative idea because I'm asking it as a question instead of telling him. I'm helping himself discover that what he's thinking is silly. And almost always, that's just what we need to do. Y'all, none of this is like rocket science. These are really simple principles that you just need to go and do. Treat people well, sell yourself on them, and this crazy things happen is your conversations change from not getting enough information to getting too much information sometimes. Your talk time and your business problems go from I don't have enough business to I have too much business. How do I scale my business? That's what Eric and I get to do every single day. That's what I do now is I coach and train ISAs. And now I coach and train top producers are selling hundreds of homes per year. And what it really comes down to is the people I know that are playing this game at the highest level, this is what they're doing. And then you scale through hiring other great people, you treat them this, and then repeat. My kid's knocking on the door. Oh, okay. I'll be there in a minute. Thank you. Summertime, y'all. All right, y'all. That's all I got. What questions you guys have for me today?
Well, before we run, come on, round of applause, guys.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. It's very kind of you.
So good. I
want to say something.
Yeah, Brent, what do you got?
This sure. Guy who went by a house and the interest rates. Thanks a lot. But that was outstanding. I mean, I can. That's 10,000 hours of mastery. That's going through the meat grinder. That is impressive. I personally will watch this 2 or 3 times. It was that good. And everybody watching online, there's 27 and everyone here. You should get your agents who work here and go, let's have a party and have popcorn and pizza. And you need to watch this again and again and again. And I also love the part where you said, Google my last name. Well, it's just T. We don't actually know. But that was pretty funny. Robby T, you know? Like,
yeah.
But dude, that was awesome. Big thumbs up. Thank you for sharing. Very good.
Thank you so much. That's an honor. Appreciate that. Thank you. If you all have any other questions, feel free to add me on Facebook, by the way.
What's your last
name? Please search Robby T. You should find me. It should just be Robby T. If you search for Robert Trefethrin, that is my dad, and my dad's a truck driver, like I said. So unless you want driving lessons, please make sure you're messaging the right nerd in the glasses. The other way you can reach out to me is just find me on Instagram, RealRobbyT, so Real Robby T,